to this episode of Puck Drop, as we are going to be doing an episode where we tell you about the NHL coming back on January 13th, which is the proposed plan by the NHL Players Association. So first of all, the NHL Board of Governors has not yet voted for it, and we are expecting the final decision to be made this Wednesday, which should be exciting. And also some other things I want to tell you, the 7 teams that did not qualify for the playoffs this year, that includes the New Jersey Devils and teams like the LA Kings, San Jose Sharks, etc., are expected to start off their training camp on the 31st of December, meaning that they're going to have to start a 2-week quarantine next Wednesday, I believe, actually it is. So we're moving very quickly in terms of getting this season going. Players are all rested, getting ready to go, which should be quite exciting. So we're gonna just do some discussing for you, tell us our opinions, update you on some information. First of all, the first thing I want to talk about is travel and division alignment. Guys, there's going to be we are not 100% sure about how the divisions are going to work this year, but we do know one thing for sure. Due to travel regulations from the American and Canadian federal governments, there's going to be a whole division just dedicated to the 7 Canadian teams. What do you think?
That's going to be hell. Travel is going to be hell. You kidding me?
It's the only way, though.
It's the only way.
But do you know what else this means? Do you know what else it means?
What?
It means that because the Canadian teams can only play inside their division, every team is only going to play inside their division. The Devils will play the Rangers, the Capitals, the Bruins 8 times.
Meaning that we're going to have a very, very tough schedule. Now, the Metro Division was already tough as it is, and we already had a tough time.
Yeah.
But playing the Bruins, the Capitals, the Rangers, the Islanders 8 times. 8 times.
Which is why I think for the playoffs, just for one more year, the NHL should do 2014 playoffs. And I think what it should be is the top 4 teams in each division should make the playoffs, and then the second 2 teams in each division, the 5th and 6th place team should all make the playoffs, and those teams will play in a wild card round.
Jacob, let's just keep this in mind here, though. It's not like we have a lot of leniency in terms of how long the season can last. We don't want the NHL because a 2014 playoff takes a long time, and there's a lot of procedures. Excuse me. There's a lot of procedures that they have to put into place and all that stuff. I don't want the NHL to get used to having this type of thing where they start their season mid-January and they roll on all the way past May. I prefer not.
Well, I mean,
these are unprecedented times. They're not
This year, the NHL playoffs were shorter than they usually were with the qualifying.
Yeah. Are they going into a bubble for the playoffs? Did they say anything about that?
I don't know.
Probably.
I don't think they're worried about it yet.
Probably just because of the Canadian teams, but they might not. Because by that point, almost all the players, at least I think, will probably be vaccines. It's
vaccinated.
Yes, vaccinated. Thank you, Jordan. The vaccine.
All right, let me take the mic for 1 sec. We talk about the playoffs, we talk about all that, but there is one problem that is going to really be circulating around these Canadian teams. 7 teams trapped in one country, can't go play the other 24 teams in this hockey league until playoff time, if this is how it's going to work, and travel is going to be an utter uncomfortable disaster for those players and staff. It's going to be an utter disaster out there in Canada.
I'd be highly surprised if a Canadian team makes it to the conference finals.
Probably. They're all going to be so tired. First of all, these guys are going to be switching time zones like every other week. It's going to be crazy. Probably less.
But in other news, the NHL could, if the NHL does end up going into a bubble this season, they have discussed that in their meetings with the NHLPA. And it sounds like the 3 cities that have, in America, that have been the candidates for the bubbles are Las Vegas for the West, Columbus for the Central/South, and New Jersey for the East.
Oh, really?
Because
Jersey.
the qualifications apparently they need to have big hotels nearby.
But
The
whoa,
Devils
whoa,
do.
whoa, whoa, whoa. By big hotels, what's the limitations for the travel distance from the arena to the hotels? Because all the big hotels are not exactly all the comfortable hotels that these players deserve and probably have in their contracts do not reside in or near Newark, New Jersey.
Yeah, there are
I
plenty
think
of good hotels in Newark.
No, but there are plenty of hotels in Newark, but I can guarantee you this, the player contracts request a certain level of hotel comfort. I promise you this.
I think
There are
I
plenty of
think I
good.
think
Don't
it's
worry about
probably
that, Ryan.
within
In New
probably
York,
within
I would
20
agree,
minutes. Like
but
the Hilton by by Summit.
okay.
And
Yay.
Don't worry, Ryan. There are plenty of good hotels
Yeah,
in and
there's-
around Newark, and
and-
if need be, they could use hotels in
and
York.
also the other
Exactly. That's what I was about to
qualifications
say.
are that I think really propels the Devils as a candidate if the Devils need a hub or if the NHL needs a hub is that there needs to be a second facility. And the Devils have that. The Devils have a
Yeah, they do.
So which is big. And they have
Don't they practice at Cody
they have a
Arena?
big nice practice room.
Wait, no. They used to practice at Cody
Yeah.
Arena.
Moving on, in other words, something else I would like to talk about today, as we would like to move the chains here, is that, and I find this very interesting, the NHL board is very skeptical on this return plan. Although I think this might be the best option they have, excluding their playoff plan. What are they skeptical about, Jacob and Jordan? What are they skeptical about? What could they possibly be skeptical?
I think some of the owners are mostly skeptical about the divisions, which makes sense. I mean, you have that ring of death division in the East, and then you have a division that has the three California teams and the possibly the Wild, in the West Division, which here the West Division has Anaheim, Arizona, Colorado, Dallas, LA, San Jose, St. Louis, Vegas. Half those teams are not good.
Yeah.
You know?
But obviously, Vegas planning on trading Pacioretty could really deplete, but I still think they're one of the better teams in that list. But anyway, moving on. Jordan, I think what they're most skeptical about is the Canadian teams and travel. I don't think they should be worrying about the playoffs yet. That should be due to change. And I am a little skeptical about a 2014 playoffs. I don't know, just in my opinion, a little too big, too many bye weeks. I mean, too many teams receiving a bye. I like when a playoffs gets exciting quickly after a long season like this one with all the problems. Mushing a lot of games in quickly. I would rather than have maybe a 12 to 16 team playoff, preferably 16 like they always do. Just my opinion. What do you think, Jordan?
Yeah, I think another thing the owners are going to try to do, or for lack of a better term, try to exploit. They're going to try to sneak their teams into the playoffs through aligning the divisions in a way that gives them an advantage. That's just my opinion. It's a system that's easily exploitable. The other owners will not be happy about it, but it's a system that can easily be exploited.
And let me just say, Jordan, this plan that I have notes taken on that I've very closely studied before we are filming this episode right now is that I can confirm to you the only division that is definitely confirmed is Canada. The only thing that this says is that they're going to be realigning divisions. There's nothing saying what the divisions are yet. So plenty of time for the owners to try and sneak around that one.
Well,
the East is pretty much confirmed.
Yeah, the East is pretty much confirmed. The only reason the West and Central/South is not confirmed is because teams like Dallas, St. Louis, Minnesota, owners aren't sure whether their board of governors and NHLPA aren't quite sure whether to place which teams to place in the West, which teams to place in the Central/South.
And I'll give you an example. The Wild, they are a fringe playoff team they're basically a fringe playoff team, and they could be placed in one of two divisions. Their owner is probably going to try to get them in either the easier travel, depending on their priorities.
No, the owner is going to try to get them into Central/South. 100%. Because A, it's easier for travel, and B, that is the way easier division. West, great, has Vegas, St. Louis, and Dallas, and Colorado, 4 of the top teams in the league. Central/South, they have Carolina and Tampa. Besides that, they had no other top teams from last season.
Yes, this is proving my point. Yeah. So Minnesota Minnesota is going to try and get into the Central South Division because they could be placed in either the West or the Central South, and their owner will want an easier path to the playoffs. So it's a system that can be easily exploited.
Will the NHL, and we're going to move on to the next segment of today's episode, will the NHL, as soon as the vaccine come out, immediately require all referees, all coaches, all players to get vaccinated?
They're
No,
not going to do it immediately. They're not going to start. They're not going to require players to get vaccinated to start the season. In my opinion, the players won't get vaccinated until around March.
I think they'll get vaccinated with the general public, but teams will require them.
Okay, well that
Teams
brings
will
me
require
on to
them once they become available, because the NHL is going to privately buy vaccines, but they're not going to require them to start the season. That is what the reports have said, that the NHL is going to privately buy vaccines, but not require them to start the season, because they wouldn't have bought them to start the season.
So if you guys are especially what Jordan's saying, if you guys are pretty sure the NHL is not going to immediately vaccinate their players and staff directly affiliated with what goes on the ice, then our coaches, and this has not been confirmed yet, our coaches and staff are going to have to mandatorily wear masks and social distancing when possible.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
There's no question. Are you kidding me? There's no question. Even with the vaccine, there's no question. All the major sports leagues are requiring masks. I am pretty certain about that. And the NHL is going to require masks and social distancing, even without the vaccine. I mean, even with the vaccine.
So would there be fines if somebody were to violate that?
Well, look at the other sports leagues.
Yeah,
the NFL, the MLB, the NBA. Yes. The answer is yes.
The NFL fined the Saints like $25,000 because they like partied without masks after a game.
Yeah, and the Miami Marlins got in a lot of trouble in the MLB and really screwed up the season for Major League Baseball when they decided voluntarily, let's go to a casino and gamble in the middle of the season. So the NHL did a fantastic job controlling and making sure that that virus stayed out of the bubble. Slim to no positive cases as that 24-thing playoff continued. And I think that they're going to be the most organized once again and successful league this season, just this sports season, because the NFL, not that organized right now, let's be honest. Moving on to the next section of today's episode. Let me know what you think about this. There was a proposition from the National Hockey League Players Association, which was completely declined, possibly having trade restrictions during the season due to travel. What do you guys think of that?
No. They're not going to do that. They already explicitly said that there will be no trade restrictions between Canadian and American teams.
I know they did say that, but I want to know what your guys' opinions are, because in my opinion, I think that's good. However, I do think that is going to raise some questions between Canadian teams and American teams actually making trades during the season, considering the travel restrictions.
So Canadian and American teams will be allowed to trade with each other. There's no question about that. The question is whether players will have to quarantine. I believe they will. Yes, yeah.
Which lessens the interest in a trade. That completely lessens the interest in a trade, because
that does lessen the interest in a trade, and you're right. But it sucks, and it's bad, but it's COVID. What can you do?
Do you want,
exactly.
Then do you want? I think this might, because of that. I think Canadian and American teams will only trade with each other, because obviously Canadian teams are the players crossing into America. They won't have to quarantine. It's just the player going into Canada. I think Canadian teams will try to make trade with American teams over their bye week, at the beginning of their bye week. That way the player can come to Canada and start their quarantine.
And to close out today's episode, I have just one more question from you guys that I have gathered from my notes. Is the NHL going to pull a Major League Baseball and just decide not to reschedule missed games due to COVID? And are they just going to change the way they organize, figuring out who makes the playoffs by win percentage instead of wins? What do you guys think?
Yes.
So you think they will do it? Wait, that's very bland. Please. Sorry, I gave you a yes or no.
All right.
Give me a,
I think that the NHL will have a very tough time rescheduling games because of the division alignments. So I think they'll reorganize based on win percentage,
Jacob,
or points percentage. No, they'll do it by points percentage.
Yeah, Before Jacob, before you answer that, I'd just like to let you know I have not found anything in the extensive notes that I have done on exactly the NHL's plan for having to reschedule games due to COVID. Because remember, one COVID case, it's likely the team's going to be shut down for at least 2 weeks because they have to take extra precautions.
That's
Well,
not necessarily
not
true,
necessarily. That's in the NFL. If a player tests positive, then they just, go.
though. They might reschedule the game, but the
they'll
team goes on.
reschedule a game if enough players test positive. But if like one player tests positive, he'll just start quarantining, and then
I mean, okay, let me say that better. What I meant to say was if COVID runs through the organization, they're likely done for 2 weeks. We're cramming a lot of games into a little bit of amount of time, so we'll see. Anyway, with that being said, good time to wrap it up, gentlemen.
Yep.
yeah, sure.
All right. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Feel free to like, share, subscribe, and comment down below on what you think of today's episode and the NHL's plan to come back. Follow us on Instagram, puck_drop_sources, right? Puck_drop_source. Jordan Cooper, what is our Twitter?
At LHS Puck Drop.
Thank you. All right. And we'll see you in the next one, guys. Adios.